We start in Venezuela, where the country's interim President Delcy Rodríguez has declared a state of emergency following two strong earthquakes in quick succession. In the past few minutes, she has said that at least 32 people have been killed and 700 injured. So these are live pictures where the number of buildings have collapsed in the capital, Caracas. Some apartment blocks have been reduced to rubble. The main airport that serves the city has been severely damaged and is closed. Emergency services and volunteers have been trying to reach those trapped inside collapsed buildings. The authorities haven't yet released official casualty numbers, but one early estimate by the US Geological Survey suggests they could be extremely high, in the thousands. In a social media post, President Trump has promised help, adding he had instructed US federal agencies to be ready to move quickly. Aruna Iyengar reports.
Emergency workers helped dig out the injured from collapsed multi-storey buildings in Venezuela's capital, Caracas. Residents were frantic, trying to find news of their loved ones. This footage was taken from inside a BBC reporter's flat in the city. Venezuela's main international airport was forced to close. A collapsed building in Chacao municipality. People outside shouted the names of relatives as rescuers climbed over the rubble. The 7.2 magnitude tremor struck near San Felipe City, west of Caracas, at around 6 p.m. local time. That was followed less than a minute later by a more powerful 7.5 magnitude quake.
It was just at the time that people were getting out the works before even that. Today is a holiday day here in Caracas, Venezuela. All the structure shakes very strong in the capital. In my home, I can see how many things fell down and broken in my building. One of my neighborhood, she fell down and break her arms.
The full scale of this disaster could take days to uncover, with officials fearing the impact could lead to a high number of casualties. Aruna Iyengar, BBC News.
Our Central America correspondent Will Grant sent this update.
The twin earthquakes struck in the state of Carabobo, about 200 kilometers outside Caracas. One at around 7.1 magnitude, the next at 7.5, and the effects were felt right the way through to the Colombian capital, Bogota. They were certainly very, very keenly and powerfully felt in the Venezuelan capital, Caracas, where buildings have been brought down in a number of neighborhoods. I've been speaking to a journalist in the San Bernardino neighborhood in the north, and she's outside a building where residents say there are people trapped outside and there are emergency services on the scene. It was a national holiday in Venezuela, so many families would have been at home enjoying each other's company when the earthquakes struck. There's not been an event this powerful for some time. It's very reminiscent of the earthquakes in Venezuela in 1967 in Caracas, which have left a real scar on the collective memory of the city. Real concern about aftershocks, meaning that many people are staying outside of their apartment buildings until they're completely convinced it's safe to go back inside. Indeed, the Interior Minister, Diosdado Cabello, has told many people to stay outside their buildings for fear of gas leaks, and gas has been switched off to some parts of the city. This is still an emerging picture. It's not clear just how many people could have been caught in those buildings, but certainly emergency services will be working through the night to try and reach them in what is a very, very serious seismic event in Venezuela.
Will Grant there with some of the latest details. Well, let's go live to Caracas now and speak to the journalist Tony Frangier Mawad. Good to speak to you, Tony. So just describe the moment when these earthquakes took place. Where were you?
Thank you for having me. I was actually in an elevator in my own building. Today's a holiday in Venezuela, so there are no classes. Most people don't go to work. And I was actually heading out to watch a World Cup game with my friends. And I went into the elevator with one of my friends, and the elevator started moving really fast and shaking side to side and just going all the way down. And we realized midway that it was clearly an earthquake. Then it opened up in the basement of the building, and we ran out, and we started seeing many neighbors come out of the apartments and come down to the gardens of the building where we stayed for a few hours. My family also came out and tried to get some signal or some Wi-Fi connection because phone carriers started to fail. That's when I started to see the first reports that it was not just a minor movement like we tend to see sometimes in Caracas, but rather a big one, which we haven't seen since 1967. And that buildings, especially in the north part of the city, I was in the southeast, had collapsed. Then we also saw the reports from La Guaira, which Delcy Rodríguez is now calling a zone of disaster. And it seems that tens of thousands of buildings have also collapsed in that area. So we don't know yet the number of casualties, but it's expected to be high.
Yeah, I was just going to say that must have been absolutely terrifying for you, Tony, and your family, your friends, the people that you know. As you say, many buildings have collapsed. How prepared is Venezuela for this, given the fact that you've not seen earthquakes of this scale for so many years?
So after the 67 earthquake, buildings in Caracas are required to be built to resist seismic activity. So actually many of them were designed for that. And I feel that's one of the reasons why the collapses were not that many in Caracas, unlike other areas like La Guaira. But nevertheless, the state has been enduring, and the whole society of Venezuela, a major crisis in the last few years. We've seen the collapse of basic services. We've seen a weakened state with not much capacity to act. So I'm afraid that the capacity to act and the resources and the people needed are actually quite limited. So right now we're seeing, the mayorships asking for water or for tools or for resources to help in the recovery efforts. And through social media, we're seeing Venezuelans posting about their missing relatives and friends. The United States just said a few hours ago that they're sending a major humanitarian response. So I suspect that help from abroad and from other countries and organizations will be needed in Venezuela, especially in areas outside Caracas.
Yeah, because I was just assuming, the medical facilities, hospitals will be overwhelmed with those who are pulled out of the rubble, who need emergency care straight away. It could actually be quite overwhelming, the state of what's required now, because as you say, so many buildings have collapsed. Some are estimating there could be thousands in need.
Yes, in fact, earlier I was talking with other journalists from abroad, and they were asking me about the population of Caracas. And part of the problem is that we don't even know because there's no data. We haven't had a census since 2011. And then we have major migration movements both within Venezuela and outside of Venezuela. So I feel that the country was already in a very, very vulnerable and fragile state, and now this happens. It also means that you have a very impoverished population that have seen their homes being destroyed or affected, and they cannot go back. So this is probably gonna have a lot of consequences, and I feel that we don't know yet the extent, but it's gonna be deep and wide in Venezuelan society.
And Tony, do you feel reassured to some extent by the fact that the US has said we're ready and willing to come and help quickly? That's a new relationship that has been brokered this year following the dramatic arrest and removal of President Maduro. I mean, does this mean that the outcome of this could be a lot better?
Yeah, I think that the help of the US will be crucial. And definitely a game changer. And also other countries have offered their help. Rodriguez was talking about Latin American countries, about the United Kingdom, about Arab countries and multilateral organizations also offering their help. And I feel that's going to be quite necessary. In fact, La Guaira, which is the area that's being mostly affected right now with many buildings collapse, also endure a major rain disaster a few decades ago in 1999. And part of the problem was that the government back then didn't allow many aid from abroad to come. So I think that's going to be a major game changer now.
The worry, I guess, is for the areas outside of the capital, Caracas, the more rural, remote areas, because this was felt, wasn't it, as far as Bogota. So, I mean, It has had an impact far and wide.
Yeah, we've seen collapses in the north areas of Caracas, which tend to go from the middle class and even the lower middle class to upper class areas. Many buildings in those northern neighborhoods like San Bernardino, like Los Palos Grandes, collapse. There's also reports in other more vulnerable areas of the city, like Las Minas de Baruta and San Martin. But as I said, the biggest reports of damages come from La Guaira, which is a coastal town on the other side of the mountains that surround Caracas. That's where the airport is. There's reports of tens of buildings falling and many missing people. And there's also reports of other areas, rural areas like Yaracuy or Tucacas or Maracay, which is a smaller city outside Caracas, like 2 hours away from Caracas, with major damages or important damages with the buildings. So yeah, there's a lot of damage in Caracas, but also in other cities, and especially in the coast outside Caracas.
Okay. Tony Frangier Mawad, thank you so much for talking to us, a journalist
Thank
based
you.
in Caracas. We're glad that you are safe and well, but of course our thoughts are with those who are missing, those who have been impacted by this two earthquakes back-to-back, powerful in quick succession. We have got a live page, as you can see here, that's updating on the latest. At least 32 dead, around 700 injured, according to interim President Delcy Rodríguez. However, that number is expected to go up.